Well, hello and welcome back to Read Becca. Well, we're back again for a to be read list, a TBR, for the month of May this time. And unfortunately, I didn't get to very much of my April TBR. So those books may come back. I'm not going to put them on a list for this. We do have a couple of days left in April as I'm filming this. So I could get to maybe one more book, maybe start a second at most. I would say the two I most missed out on having gotten to from my TBR list in April were Drop of Corruption, which I've still been waiting for the audio to come in. Nobody is pushing that one back on Libby, it seems. I was expecting to get it much quicker. Everybody is picking it up, so I didn't jump ahead in the line at all. So that one I think will be coming in soon. And then Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. I really want to get to that one. So those are my two most likely to show up in the month of May. Otherwise, there are a load of wonderful events, so I think the rest of my reading is all at least guided somewhat by events. So I'll mention the events and hashtags and stuff, but I'm not going to go in depth into descriptions of what those events are because we'll be here all day. But I kind of ended up with like a duo-ish of things here. So first, Misery May, which is kind of based off of Thomas Hardy. I'm not reading any Thomas Hardy this year, but I do have two selections for Misery May. The first is Miriam Toews, A Complicated Kindness. Toews you can definitely count on being miserable, I think. I have read both of her most famous works, Women Talking and All My Puny Sorrows, definitely. But this book, A Complicated Kindness, also is winner of the Governor General's Award and winner of Canada Reads. So major award winner. And I expect it will be quite miserable and quite excellent because Toews is always excellent. So this one follows a lot of themes that she brings up over and over. I think we're with a young woman who is struggling with her connection to family and her feelings about her very isolated Mennonite community and kind of potentially wanting to leave that. And then her mother and sister disappear, I believe. But I strongly doubt this is going to have any like thriller type elements. It's not focused on that. It's probably going to be mostly quiet character study. That's what most of Miriam Toews' books are. So I think that's what it's going to be about, but we will see. The other is actually a reread, Ellen Peyton's Cry the Beloved Country. I read this when I was kind of newly into adulthood and was blown away by it. And I remember some very broad strokes of it, but I don't really remember the details. I know this is going to be very miserable and sad. I remember there's a strong religious element to this, which will kind of connect us into the next readathon. But there's a man who's searching for his lost son. It's very grounded in South African culture and history. Yeah, that one I think is going to be fantastic. And I think I've put it on a TBR before and not gotten to it. I really, really need to because I want to read it so much. Then we have, from the religious element of that, we're moving into Maybe Midrash. I don't think anyone is actually running it this year. Same thing happened last year, but I did it anyway, I think. I have two options for this as well. So the one from my own shelves is What is the Bible? By Rob Bell. How an ancient library of poems, letters, and stories can transform the way you think and feel about everything. I very much enjoy Rob Bell. He's like a very progressive, emerging church pastor, and I like the way he thinks about these topics. This is on the longer side, but I think it's probably going to be pretty quick to read because he generally writes, he, as a pastor, he writes the way you would deliver a sermon, so it tends to have a lot of spaced out text. So I think that this will probably be a quick, very accessible read. To the opposite, I have The Messiah Confrontation, Pharisees versus Sadducees and the Death of Jesus. And this is a library copy, so unfortunately it's very shiny. This is by Israel Knoll, and this was translated from the Hebrew by David Mizell. So this is kind of a more academic book. It's under 200 pages with a significant amount of notes in there. So I think this is going to be a slow, kind of more meditative read. And I heard about this one, I believe, I'm quite sure, via Steve Donahue. I think he got it in like a mail haul a few years ago. And I don't know who else would have been reading this. I'm quite certain it was him. This sounds like it will be very much my sort of thing. I am fascinated by exploring the Jewish context for Jesus Christ. And that, I think, is much more of what this is. That's one of those areas that really fascinates me because I was raised very evangelical, and there's a certain understanding of Christ as Jewish. But I think most people in the evangelical church, specifically, what I can speak to, recognize that, but think of it more ethnically. Whereas Christ was a fully practicing Jew for the entirety of his life. There was no separation from the religion for him, for his followers for many years after. There was no concept of a separate religion. So it took me going to college and being required to study the Bible academically to really have that recognition of, oh, wait, yes, Christ was preaching Judaism. So I have a fascination with that topic, and I want to dive in more to something related. And I think I didn't even mention what maybe Midrash is. So maybe Midrash is a readathon that focuses on Midrash, which is kind of a Jewish concept. And I think it boils down to grappling with the text. So it's about getting into religious topics. And in the past, there have been the idea of pairing a fiction and a nonfiction in some related way, but I'm not overly worried about following any of that, just generally doing a dive into some religious topics. Then we have Spoonie's Readathon, which I have Sitting Pretty by Rebecca Tausig, The View from My Ordinary, Resilient, Disabled Body. So Spoonie's Readathon is all about disability and chronic illness reading. I have picked this up, I think, at least 3 separate times from the library and not gotten to it, and it's not too long, so I really, really want to get to this. It's a nonfiction memoir about disability, and I've heard fantastic, fantastic things. And lastly, for my physical pile, I have A Messy Murder by Simon Brett IV in the Decluttering Mysteries. And this, I don't think fits any readathon, but it's catching me up to current on this series because this came out late last year, I think, since I last picked up the previous release of this. So I'm trying to keep up on my series very well. And I saw it at the library and just picked it up. This is not a cozy mystery series, but it certainly has cozy vibes because of the character relationships and connections. Obviously, we are following a declutterer, a professional declutterer, and I really enjoy that aspect. And they are murder mysteries, so it's an amateur sleuth sort of situation. But there are really heavy elements to all of these books with a lot of mental health, and the alcoholism comes up throughout. And there's a lot of pills on this one, so I'm assuming it's going to be associated with things like that too. And I've never loved any of these, but I keep coming back to them, and they're very, very short and easy reads. And I just always like them, though I don't love them. So yeah, we'll be continuing on with that. And then the last one that I don't have physically here is actually a duology. So I, in the past, read The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexander Bracken. And I never got back to it when the second book in the duology came out to finish it. And so I thought that would be perfect for horror mayhem, because I don't often have horror books owned on my own shelves very often. So this one I will need to get from the library. So I haven't done that yet. That doesn't bode well for diving into it in a couple days. But it should be quick. It's a middle grade horror that's very atmospheric. It's set surrounding this historic town in New England, very Salem, Massachusetts-like, I would say, though I don't think it was Salem itself, where the founders made a deal with the devil, and Prosper Redding is part of this lineage who now is facing some consequences of that deal with the devil. So it's as I said, very atmospheric. I think it has a real fall, like autumnal vibe to it. So not really seasonal, but I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm quite certain. So I really, again, want to wrap up those series, so getting to this will also be helpful for my goals. So with that, those are the readathons and books that I'm hoping to get to and participate in. I'm very excited, and as I mentioned, I will probably be still picking up some other random things in addition to these and my old past TBR. So lots of reading that I want to do in May. We shall once again see how much I actually get to any of it at all. So let me know, are you participating in these readathons? And if you have any good suggestions for me on these readathons, are you participating in maybe Midrash? I'm curious if anyone else is still keeping that going, because I really loved that readathon, and I don't think anybody is really formally doing it anymore. I would love to see more nonfiction, like religious types of readathons, throughout the year, but it is kind of an undertaking to run a read. So anyway, that is it for me today, and I thank you so very much for watching.